Should we
Do
dive
it.
in?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're really excited that you could again thank you for showing the support, so much support and love for today's session. So we're really stoked about that. My name's Chris, and I'm the CEO and founder of Digital Ink. My company helps marketing efforts for PSPs, printers, software providers. We love working in the print industry. Creatively, it's one of the best, as we all know, and technically, probably more exciting than the tech industry right now. And hopefully, we're going to give you an insight into why the print industry and the software that we provide for the print industry is actually more advanced than most of the other industries that we all sell our products to. So I've had the pleasure of working in this industry for 10 years, and that's not much compared to the all of you that are coming around have been in this industry for many years. But in those 10 years, working within web to print, mainly in SaaS software, I was very lucky to come across both Print IQ and InFocus, two very forward-thinking and progressive companies. So I'm really excited to bring both of those guys together today, both of which are providing us experts to talk on the hot topic within the industry right now, AI. So I'm sure most of you have heard this term several times, or if you go onto your LinkedIn feed, within about 5 minutes, you'll see 70,000 plastic toys, dolls, where people have made themselves into some kind of kid's toy of some sort. So AI, is it a new revolution? Is it something that we should be concerned about? Is it something we should be embracing? These are all things we're hopefully going to cover today. My two experts, I need to introduce those guys first of all. So I'm going to start off with Craig Powell, General Manager for Print IQ US. Craig, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to be here. We're very excited to have this webinar. We've been looking forward to it and planning it for a while. Yeah, I'm general manager for North America for Print IQ. I've been in the industry, the printing industry, over 20 years now.
Wow.
Came up through the ranks of work in production, and I've done everything from, pre-press all the way up through sales and management, and been on both sides of the fence, as it were. And I feel like this conversation today is exciting because it's the evolution of things that have been going on in the print industry for a long time, as I think we'll get into here shortly. And I'm just excited to have this conversation with you guys today.
Thank you, Craig. And Davey, you've been a busy guy recently. Tell us a little bit about yourself and focus and why you've been so busy.
Well, sorry that I come over a little bit tired, but I'm still extremely jet lagged. Was in the US for 3 weeks and actually heading back to the US next week. So sorry if I look a little bit tired. No, I'm Davy Verstaan. I'm the App Store manager here at InFocus. The App Store is our ecosystem where we offer a lot of integrations with third-party systems, PrintIQ being one of them, and tightly integrates Switch with those third-party systems. Been in the industry for more than 25 years, started in production, then headed over to Fujifilm, where I was product manager for XMF for 10 years. Also been in the MIS world, but not in Print IQ, but a other colleague of Print IQ, mostly in Europe. And then started at InFocus 4 years ago as the product manager of Switch. And last year, I actually started a new position at InFocus, being the App Store manager. Very excited to be here, and very interesting also to know from the audience what, for example, they're already doing in AI as well, if they're already using it in their production environment, and also in what way they're using it in a production environment. But of course, we're here also to enlighten the audience of what we see already AI tools being used in our industry, and which direction that we're heading into while using and implementing these AI functionalities.
I think that's a really interesting point, David, and we'll get into that in a second. It's not just what you see, but it's what you guys know as well, and that's something I found really interesting talking to you guys in the build up to this session. There's facts and figures behind the print industry and the use of AI that actually shows that we're far ahead of the curve of the ChatGPT users. So, but before we jump into that, thanks, Davey. We'll ask everyone to jump in the chat and tell us what they're using AI for, if they're using AI, in a second. First of all, there's a few expectations. We really want everybody to be interactive in the session today. So please throw as many questions if you want to hear more about something, if you want information from Print IQ, if you want to find out how you can book a demo or maybe a discovery call with either or of today's hosts, please pop it inside the chat because we will follow up post session with you. Yes, we did mention there's over 500 of you on today's session, which is absolutely fantastic. But the whole point of this is to share the knowledge and share the information to help develop our industry. So I'm just going to move on to a few housekeeping rules, if I may, gentlemen. Okay, so like I say, we're really keen to hear from everyone today. So please put as much information as possible in the chat. No question's a silly question. If you want to ask a question from our esteemed colleagues, please pop it in there. If you just want to share how you use AI, and I know quite a few of you are really, really embracing this this new way of working, then please do share what you do. We want to know. Or if you have some fears or anxieties, let's hear about that as well. Okay, now we've got the questions and answer section as well. You'll see down in the bottom corner. Please ask any questions you may want to put to one of our guests. And as I say, if we don't get to it today, we will follow up and come back to you. But if you want further information post this session, pop your email address in as we go, and we'll come back to you. Okay, so we like to be interactive, as I said. We're going to kick off with a couple of polls first and foremost. First of all, let's start with Print IQ. Are you interested in learning more about how an effective streamlining your print operations through an MIS system? You have 4 answers here, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, maybe I'd like to hear more. No, not at this time. We already have the most powerful MIS solution. Now, technically, if you have the most powerful MIS solution, you're basically saying you're a Print IQ customer, or at least that's what Craig's paid me to say. So let's see what this poll says right now. Let's see where we're going first and foremost. And you guys are quick off the draw. I wonder which nationalities are the quickest right now with this. There are some rumours that the Belgians are the technical software whiz kids of the print industry, but I'm sure the Americans would like to challenge that point as well. Okay, so maybe I'd like to hear more. At the moment, is just edging it to 39, 41%. So thank you for that. So again, if you want to hear more about MIS, pop your email address into the chat, and then we'll make sure somebody from Print IQ will follow that up for you. Again, we're here to share information today, so whatever we can do, please let us know. So that looks like there's some follow-ups there, Craig, some potentials there for you. 18%, by the way, have said they had the most powerful MIS solution. So that's interesting. Do we ask what they have? I don't know. I'll leave that one to you, Craig. Okay,
Yeah,
let's move on. Let's move on to the next poll, please. So in the next poll here, we're going to move on to pre-press. Okay, pre-press automation is something that can create efficiencies in your business. Is this something you want? Maybe you'd like to hear more, or no, not at this time. I'd be worried if you hit no, not at this time. Everyone should want to hear about business efficiencies. We already have the most powerful pre-press system. So I think, again, if you have the most powerful pre-press system, surely it's got to be an InFocus solution. Again, Davey's paid me to say that, but joking aside, you can't go wrong with these 2 vendors. Let's see where we're at. So pre-press looks pretty strong right now. Yeah, we're looking at 46% of you already have your pre-press in order. Looks like we've got some very astute attendees today, chaps. Okay, thank you very much. So we have nobody hitting the no, not at this time option, which is really encouraging to see. And this just backs up my argument that print really is the tech industry. Okie dokie, let's get on to the big stuff. Let's get on to the good stuff. 78% of companies using AI, or at least in one business function in 2024, are up to 55% more on the previous year. That's quite a large percentage, sorry. And that can cover a gambit of things. That's personalization, optimization, automation, packaging and design, color correction, 3D printing, print quality, and predictive maintenance, as well as supply chain. I think first and foremost, I think I'm going to start off with Craig, and I'd really like to ask Craig, is AI new? Is it revolutionary? Is it just a buzzword? Is it a trend? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, probably a little bit of all of those things, right, at any given time, depending on who you're asking. But I think that, it's become buzzworthy and trendy, of course, in the last couple of years because of the explosion of tools like ChatGPT or Claude or all these other AI tools, which are really just, I heard them described recently as spicy autocomplete, which I think is relatively accurate in that they're really guessing, the most likely words to follow when you ask them a question. They're getting very good at doing a whole lot of things, but the concept of AI think, is not new. We know that it's been around for a long time, and we've called it different things even in our own industry over the years, right? Where there's been times where automations have come and gone through tools. There's, rules-based automation and all these different things that we've called it over the years. And I think that that's really what we're trying to convey today in this conversation is the idea that AI has been ingrained into the thought process of people in the printing industry for a whole lot longer than it's been mainstream, I would think. So, at PrintIQ, for example, we've got a lot of things inside of the AI world, whether they're called AI or not, right? Logic and thinking, decisions that are being made based on all of the parameters of what somebody has in their shop, the people, the process, the product, all the different equipment and operations they have in their business. All of those things feed into essentially algorithms that make decisions for you. And under the hood, that's a very less exciting, buzz-worthy way of saying that it's I think, under the hood, and it's been that way for a long time.
Interesting, Craig. So, Davey, AI is not new. Do you want to jump in on that point?
Exactly what Craig said, for example, how do you define AI? What is AI? We have different levels of AI as well, and certainly in the more and more popping up the last couple of years. But AI has already been around for ages in the end. Some say, for example, rule-based automation is also a kind of AI. It is somebody that actually defined in a rule-based automation way what needs to be done in a certain stage of the process. And it's that intelligence that has been translated into software. So rule-based automation, like we have in Focus Switch, could be seen as some level of AI, but we do see, for example, more and more heading into the path of where we connect rule-based AI with real AI systems to even strengthen the automation as well.
Davey, how old is it? In layman's terms, for people that
Layman
maybe
terms, actually, we could ask the audience how old that they think AI is already, how old AI is already, or how long AI has been around. But to actually disclose the surprise, AI has already been around for 70 years. The birth of AI goes back to 1956 already. So that's already 70
yeah.
years.
So,
Yeah.
Davey, guys are coming in straight away with Turing as a response. So yeah, so Alan Turing was the
Turing is still before the birth of AI. Turing was around 1950, where the Turing test came up that we can identify machine from human, but AI is actually around 1956.
Fantastic. Okie dokie. Okay, so let's, from a historical perspective, so you've covered that off, and that's fantastic. And obviously, we're probably all a bit caught up in the noise and the trends that we're seeing right now that obviously ChatGPT has given us in the last couple of years. But let's go back to how the print industry is actually using AI technologies over the last. Well, let's just go, in your experience, gentlemen. Let's start off with you, Davey. You mentioned straight away, well, fairly early on, you dropped Switch straight in there. I think I've heard Switch known as a Swiss Army knife of software packages. I think that was from Morton at Inkish. I think he's mentioned that a few times. But tell us how Switch is using it, for example, or your other programs, and when it started.
Switch started 20 years ago already, yeah. Being rule-based automation from the start. Of course, we had simple tools and we started with automating pre-flighting process, for example. We also had very simple tools at that time to be able to split PDFs, to merge PDFs, and was very focused on the manipulation of PDF files. And that already changed in the years, for example, and I would have to say that changed since we launched the InFocus App Store in 2016. That's also nearly 10 years ago, with the possibility to add additional tools to your Switch ecosystem, not actually adding additional tools to migrate, for example, an XML to into a JSON, but also to be able to connect Switch to third-party systems. And what we see lately is more and more integration with AI web services. For example, we do have an integration with OpenAI, with ChatGPT and DALL-E, for example, to where customers are using this in a marketing perspective to be able to generate marketing content. And this could be, for example, images, but this could also be text, for example. And certainly we see that more and more in the creation of direct mailing, where, for example, it used to be a lot of work and a lot of effort to create those variable images and variable content in the end, where a lot of AI is now used to be able to generate and to help to generate those images and that text, certainly with generative AI, connections with generative AI. But also, and I already saw a couple of examples here in the chat as well, the possibility to generate bleed, for example. More and more AI tools are now used to generate bleed on images. Like, for example, what you can do in Photoshop manually. There are ways to do that automatically as well with an app on our app store. Or, for example, we need to do the removal of backgrounds, where in the past, for example, we would start doing this in Photoshop and would take a couple of minutes, maybe sometimes hours, depends on the amount of hair that a certain person had. You could spend a lot of time selecting the image and removing the background. Now, this can now be done in literally milliseconds, for example. Creating cut paths around those images now as well. With Bitstop Server, we now have functionalities that can create cut paths around those contours, for example, all driven by AI. So that is how, for example, we see in Switch, where we are using those apps that integrate with AI web services to strengthen actually and to automate further specific tasks in our industry. So yes, AI is already used nowadays, and we have a couple of examples that we already have in the industry where it's used. Another example, for example, is OCR. There are AI services out there that automatically apply OCR on documents, and that translates or the information on PDFs, for example, as metadata that can be used to create a new order or a new job, for example, in PrintIQ, based on an order that they received through email, for example. So that is another example how AI nowadays already is used in an automated workflow.
Right. So while Davey catches his breath, because I think he's just
sorry about that.
the history of InFocus.
You guys invited me, eh? You guys invited.
Craig, I mean, PrintIQ has always prides itself on saving a day a week in terms of bringing automation and improving workflows, and that's something that you guys have been doing for a while now, and that's huge to anyone where time really is money. But what's PrintIQ's angle on this? How does PrintIQ see the print industry and how it's using AI, and also tell us a little bit how that works within your workflow.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's really to build even on what Davey was saying, and I've been reading some of the comments in the chat as well, and thinking back in my my career thus far in the print industry, and can remember along the way tools that came in that we could call them AI now when we look back on them, but they are automation, which has really been the big key driver of a lot of developments in the print industry for many, many years. The idea that you can do more work with the same amount of people or potentially less. And it's not, in the normal conversation about AI outside of the print industry, especially, there's all this fear and trepidation about the idea that AI will, replace people in some way. But in reality, what we've seen for many years now inside our industry is we don't always have a lot of fresh blood coming into the industry of people that specifically get into print. Now, you get a lot of people that I think come into print from other avenues and other paths, and then, they end up staying in the industry then because they find a place. But the idea is that everybody needs to work harder and smarter, both. They need to be able to do more more tasks, because a lot of businesses, everyone's wearing multiple hats inside there. And so I think the automations along the way, kind of like what Davey said, what some people are sharing in the chat, is the idea that these tools make us more productive along the way. And inside of PrintIQ, especially, we've taken that same approach of being able to take logic, to take the thinking that goes into the production process, that starts with the estimate. And because our engine has the ability to take into consideration the operations and the equipment and all of the things that go into what makes a job, when somebody queries and puts in, the quote request for what they're wanting out of the system, it actually goes through and calculates all the different production paths that are possible, all the different combinations of those things. It comes back with the most cost efficient way to do that, but it retains all of those other ones. That's really, if you think about it, that's intelligence that's happening under the hood. That is a way of thinking through all of those things in a minute or less, that would have taken you hours potentially to do in that way. And then I think really that lays the framework of all along then, the touch points in and out of PrintIQ, because really an MIS acts as the central cog of a workflow, right? Where all the details and information are flowing in and out. And it allows us to integrate then with other platforms, whether that's bringing in work from a web to print or connecting to a tool like what InFocus offers. It allows us to have those data points that can move the job along and do various things along the way to move it from start all the way through to finish, and to augment the team's ability to do that. So really, these are just time-saving tools, which underneath it all is the point of AI. And that's what we look at it in the PrintIQ world as well, as just a way to augment staff and make them more productive.
You're watching AI in print, revolution or evolution? Okay, gentlemen, so let's move on. So 126% of people say productivity is increased by programs using AI tools compared to those who don't use AI technology. Now, before I ask you to concur, I would like to ask you a few more questions, if I may. How do you, as a panelist, feel that AI tools are, improving productivity daily? And let's slightly go to the left here and look at maybe tools you'll use to write an email, or maybe something you'll use to work out a calculation, something that's maybe not in the workflow or in Switch or in PrintIQ. But how do you guys feel that the day-to-day is improved through productivity tools? And I'm going to ping that to Craig.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally what I was just saying. I think, people are only able to do so much at any given time. You're only able to operate, physically your hands and fingers so fast. And I think that finding tools that allow you to extend your capabilities to work on multiple things potentially at the same time, because you kick off one process and these tools pick up the work and do some of the heavy lifting, and then you're able to then shift and focus on other things. I think that's really the idea of it, is that efficiency gain that you get from these tools doing those repetitive tasks that just, they're time killers. They suck up time and don't allow you to do productive things that actually really move the needle forward, instead of getting trapped in the minutia.
Okay. So Davey, InFocus is a global business.
Mm-hmm.
I often see you in South America, North America, Europe, wherever. How does these productivity tools help you with language and communication?
Well, first of all, I use AI on a daily basis, and nothing to do, for example, with pre-press automation, nothing to do with print production or something like that. But in my daily life, I use, for example, ChatGPT daily. What do I use it for? I'm not native English. Maybe you already noticed, but my English is not perfect, and I'm not a native English speaker. And sometimes I do know, for example, what I want to communicate to a partner, for example, to a solution partner, for example, but it takes me a while to structure my email. So that is why I'm using ChatGPT, to be able to feed information to ChatGPT. This is the content that I want to communicate to a specific partner, then structure it for me. It takes me, I'm more productive in that way, for example, to use tools like ChatGPT to be able to structure the contents of an email that I want to communicate to a partner. And that helps me a lot. And that helps me also to be more productive on a daily basis as well.
Fantastic. So would you say, and getting a bit sort of personal here maybe, that it helps a little bit of anxiety with that kind of language barrier for you? You feel a bit more confident now because you have that tool to help you?
I wouldn't say anxiety, but if I needed to communicate a complex thing, it used to take me half an hour, 45 minutes to actually write that email and reread that email and re-edit that email. Where now, for example, I can do that in 10 minutes. Just write whatever I want to communicate in my own way and then structure it by AI and actually send that email by AI. I'm more productive in a certain way.
Fantastic. And staying with you, Davey, as well. You obviously spoken about language there, which was fantastic in terms of communication. What about coding assistance, coding
Yeah.
development? Talk to me about that.
Next to the App Store Manager, I do write some apps myself. I am also
Really?
an app creator. as Now, we use a coding language called Node.js in combination with TypeScript. Now, how did I actually start writing apps in the past before I started using ChatGPT or any kind of AI system? Is I know, for example, what kind of functionality I need. Sometimes I come into speed bumps that I do not know, for example, how I need to write certain things. And what I've done in the past is Google it. Now, a lot of us, for example, if you don't know anything, go to Google. But even if I went to Google and I was not 100% sure what I needed to look for, I came up with results and a mix of results, and it was try and error. Try and error. Try, for example, a suggestion that you find on Google, and then actually try to implement it in your Node.js script. Now, I started using ChatGPT for Node.js scripting. That will be 2 years ago. And I have to be honest, 2 years ago, when I used ChatGPT for Node.js scripting for the first time, it was rubbish. The things that was coming out of the GPT environment was really rubbish, and I had to rewrite it and retry it and redo it. It was really rubbish. It's only been since the last, I have to say, last 6 months that it's amazing. It's like, for example, feed them the manual of the Switch scripting API. Write, for example, what do you want to achieve? Maybe also copy paste a little bit of example code. And I have to say, 9 times out of 10, the reasoning behind it and the functionality behind it is exact. So I'm actually writing code, I'm not exaggerating, 100 times faster with using AI systems like ChatGPT in this case, for example, than I was 2 or 3 years ago. So that helped me a lot in actually being able to update my code, write code, and refresh code, for example, in a certain way as well. So that is a huge advantage of using ChatGPT or any AI system.
So before I go and ask you the same question, Craig, Nicholas has said here, AI is great as long as I don't have to see it working to be forced to interact with it. Gmail's cleanup options really frustrate. Trying to compose emails, I ordered Taco Bell yesterday and the bot took my order and messed it up. So there we go. That's interesting. All I was going to ask, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to share any elements of AI applications you use, and we're not just talking print related. It could be to help you with HR, sales related. It could be email drafting. It could be anything that you use that makes your day that slightly bit easier. Please share it in the chat so we can all see. We're really interested to know. Craig, going back to the points there's some really interesting points that Davey made. He's become a full stack developer, international UN translator. What about you? What do you use from a day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really using AI tools for the last several years, even just a little bit ahead of the curve of it becoming a little bit more mainstream. I've tried all of them and rotate them out kind of on a fairly regular basis. I invest in some of the paid options as well, so I get access to some of the beta features, just because I want to see like what's coming in the next models. Fairly heavy user of ChatGPT, as well as the Gemini models from Google and the Claude models. from Anthropic. I think they all have different, pros and cons, as most tools do. But yeah, some use cases I think that are interesting, from a productivity standpoint. One thing I have to do in my role sometimes is to take lots of different communication from multiple different sources, maybe an email thread conversations, internal, notes from, meetings that are had, those kinds of things,
Mhm.
and try to put all that information together to distill what are the action items, what are the things that need to come next. And without the usage of AI tools, it can be hard if you're trying to maintain multiple different sources of information. You got to read through multiple times. You got to try to take notes externally. It's a lot of work. I mean, it can be hours of work easily when you're trying to look at those pieces of information. So one thing I think that's interesting in these tools is, you can create PDFs out of email threads. You can create PDFs out of other content that you get maybe from, the AI meeting notes, right? That are built-in tools now in Zoom and other tools that keep track of what happened in a meeting. You can feed all that stuff into a tool and help it figure out and distill the timeline of what was talked about and maybe what the next action items are. Something that used to take hours can potentially take a whole lot of time off of your plate in that way. I think aside from that, though, there's some really interesting things that can be done, of course, in the business world, because we start with now these models that the base model gets smarter and smarter along the way. And the cool thing is where we are now, I think, in the AI world is you can take those base models, which are smart across a lot of general things, including coding and language translation, like you talked about. And then you can create kind of custom projects where you can train those things up, feed it specific data, maybe that's relevant to your work or to your role. And you can start to really use it to do some interesting things. Case in point, every installation we have of PrintIQ, for instance, is really different. It starts with the same base installation of the PrintIQ software, but then it gets configured. Every person puts in their operations and their equipment and all the specifics about how they do business. And so sometimes being able to understand through like knowledge base articles and things where people have asked questions, it's hard to pull in multiple angles of view across all those different tickets. So
Mhm.
internally at PrintIQ, we're even exploring ways to potentially let these AI tools pull answers collectively from across all those knowledge base articles to improve, customer service, to allow us to distill answers from across lots of different times where we've answered that same question, right, for different people.
Mhm.
That's very hard to do if you're doing that without a tool like AI, where you can feed it raw data like that and it can extract some of that information. So I think
Okay.
that it helps improve, lots of things for us, both personal productivity, as well as, company as a whole.
Mhm.
Okay, I've got some questions here, Craig, but I'm going to move on to the next slide because it's a real can of worms, and it's the big topic. Will AI, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to save it for the next slide. So let's move on. Thanks, gentlemen. Let's move on there. So 55% of print jobs life cycle is spent estimating and job administration and scheduling. That's a lot. 55% of the time is a hell of a lot. But typically, efficiency gains can be improved by 30% through pre-press and automation. Now, both of you work for companies that drive automation. You drive workflow efficiencies, and whether you're any part of the workflow, whether you're at the front of it or the end of it, when you work with PrintIQ or you work with InFocus, you see that you're saving and reducing touch points. So I know that you guys get this, but what's interesting. And so let's start with you, Craig. We'll go back to you, even. PrintIQ uses AI-like algorithms, right, for production and pathway organization. Um, well, I'm assuming they do. How long has that been going on? And I'm assuming that uses some kind of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of, starting with the early versions of PrintIQ. I mean, that was a differentiating factor for us, is that was the automation, as it were, under the hood. And that is powered by by a series of algorithms, which again, it's just another word, right, for AI and how it works. It's a database of information, and then it takes those parameters and it analyzes them against that database of information of here's the equipment and here's all of the things that make up this business. And we've been doing that. I mean, we've been around for over 20 years now. And that's been something from the very early stages of PrintIQ. We believed that putting in that work to really get the estimating and the production details right at the very beginning really is key, because then that informs how that job flows through the shop, beyond that point. And so getting that right, trying to improve that, not only the speed of it, but the accuracy of it along the way. That's really something that's been baked in from the early stages, so that we could then attach other tools along the way for automation, like what InFocus offers.
Excellent. So I'm just going to hold you there, Craig, for 1 second. I've got a couple of points being raised in the chat. Jeff's asking about the stats. Jeff, we'll get back to you on the stats. We'll get you those reference points, so you've got those. Patrick asked a question, Craig. He says, any plans to use AI to pull PrintIQ knowledge base into searchable wiki for end users? So that sounds like an interesting request.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're internally testing that actually already. It's something where it's relatively simple to build it, but as you can imagine, we need to do our due diligence to make sure that there's information you don't want coming out in those things. But just the internal testing, it's very useful, very helpful. So that's definitely something we're looking into, to empower a chatbot type interface where you can ask questions and it pulls from questions that have been answered already in the knowledge base.
Thank you so much. Peter says he's using ChatGPT for code generation, assistance, and for automation. Let's come on to InFocus, Davey. So how does InFocus apply its automation and its intelligence through workflow systems?
Well, I think Craig already touched a very important topic, and that is data. And data is the path forwards to automate your business. Is this now through AI, or is this now, for example, just using rule-based automation? Data is key, and not only data from MIS systems, but also data from your production environments. For example, why do we have still a lot of manual touch points in a pre-press automation environment? Because data is not there, or data is not shared. For example, if you need to prepare a file for production, you need to prepare it for a specific product, for a specific material, for a specific machine, for a specific sheet size, for example. If data is shared from PrintIQ or from other systems, for example, with an automation platform, all that data can be used to take that into consideration and automate your workflow. Same thing goes, for example, on imposition. If you look at a product like, for example, Phoenix. Phoenix uses machine data to optimize the imposition, and this can be optimized for production time. It could be optimized for waste, for example, and have the same kind of algorithms, AI algorithms, that we use to actually enhance the production process. But if we go a step further, data coming from an MIS system and using this to automatically prepare production files, that's one thing, but this data can also be shared with production machines. More and more, for example, production machines have a way to integrate with third-party systems. Same thing, for example, for Canon, for HP, for Ricoh, for Fiery, for any other machines. We are able to feed them with information. Being said, how many copies do we need? What is the substrate? What is the color profile? What is the urgentness? Whose job is this? And so forth and so forth. What we see more and more is those machines also give us feedback on production stats. Giving feedback on, for example, has it already been produced? Is it in the queue? How many copies did it already print? How much ink did we use? How much paper did we use? What is the total production time? And that data, again, data is then also shared with systems like, for example, Phoenix to optimize the imposition, with, for example, also PrintIQ to optimize the post-calculation and also optimize the calculation process. It all has to do with data. If you don't have any data, if you're not able to share data across different levels in your production, in your company, don't try to implement AI. Because if you do not have data, implementing that level of AI will be impossible.
Fantastic, David. You make it sound so simple when you make that very key point there. Russell says, "Are the true costs of AI coming down to make it a viable option?" I mean, gentlemen, I don't know if you want to answer that or if you can answer that, but
Cost of
question.
AI depends on which level of AI that you're using. If you're using generative AI, if you're using, for example, a kind of reasoning AI, for example, it all depends. If you need to process data, the cost is minimal, right? Because it doesn't need a lot of processing power in those AI environments. Of course, for generative data, still needs a lot of processing power, a lot of electricity. Now, currently, we're at the third golden age of AI. If you look at the 70 years that we have of AI, we are already at the third golden age. And the reason why that we are at that third golden age, and that started, I think, around 2020 or 2022 with GPT, is having access to a certain level of processing power. If we would have the same processing powers, the same kind of hardware like we had 70 years ago, we will be already way further using AI systems in our daily life, also in a production environment. It's only because of the evolution of hardware that we now reach that third golden age of AI. Will this actually continue? Will we have another break like we had in the past? Could be. I think my personal opinion is that we need another level of evolution in, for example, the way that we generate electricity or the way that we generate power to actually have a fourth golden age. And I think that's also what everybody is waiting for, to have another way of actually being able to generate sustainable energy to actually get to another level of AI. And I think buying or implementing your own nuclear power plant will not be a sustainable solution in the end. But I really do think that the next evolution of AI will be because we have a more powerful, sustainable way of generating electricity, for example.
And it's funny you say that, just to go lighten the tone slightly. I read something the other day that the stats from the development team behind ChatGPT 4 was saying that the amount of people that actually say good morning or hello to their GPT when they log in, they actually
thank you.
Or thank you, right? But they're working out the sustainability, the energy, the amount of processing power that generates, and saying that actually there may come a point where they ask us to not, make a pointless request or try and have interaction. So it's interesting that they're thinking about that, because that goes back to what you're saying in terms of energy, running the servers, running the infrastructure and stuff. That's really, really interesting.
One piece of advice: always be friendly to your AI. Always say thank you. Because we all saw movies like, for example, Terminator and those kind of things. So keep that in mind. Always be friendly against your AI.
Okay,
one
so let's
thing
go.
Yeah, I just want really quick. One thing I wanted to add to that a little bit is I think that, when we talk about the true cost of AI coming down, I mean, I think you've got those extreme fringe cases where it will cost a lot to do massive amounts of processing. There are obviously going to be those use cases, but to bring it down a little bit more small, I think that where we are and where we have been really for a long time is most of the time we're wanting to find solutions for one small part. This part of my workflow needs to be automated in some way, and we want to empower that portion of it to be smarter, right? So that it can make those decisions along the way. Somebody commented in the chat that if this, then that, which is really just rules-based type automation. It's not really AI, and I would agree with that. With the exception of, it used to be though that the choice A and choice B that it was choosing from were static. They were just static. They only knew what they were programmed to know. Now we're at a place in the world where I think the options can be dynamically generated based on these AI tools, because we're creating specialized agents along the way, and the ability to chain those things together through cheap API calls where they're talking to each other. I think the cost will continue to go down probably in that way.
Okay. Thanks, Craig.
Exactly.
Daniel says here, automation of information gathering to create data for reference, such as capturing and calculating common problems and frictions in the process from user interface to back-end development, then using the information to be more efficient. Thank you, Daniel, for that. Gentlemen, let's move on, because this is quite a hot topic, and I'm aware that we could probably have a second or third session on this. There's so much to discuss here. We all know about integration. You guys are probably the best integrators in our industry, and have been and will continue to be. And that's why you bring value to your customers, whether it's a day a week saved by two-way communication with the MIS and PrintIQ, or whether it's the InFocus App Store. Either or, they're both winning products. But let's go into something that I hear a lot about right now, and that is that using the term use AI as a co-pilot, right? Use AI as a tool that's going to help bring efficiencies to your sales team, to your HR team, to whether it's writing emails. Let's look at the sales effectiveness of AI. And Craig, I'm going to ask you about this one, buddy. How does PrintIQ use AI for sales effectiveness?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, internally we're using it, to even take a look at responses that are generated in certain scenarios, whether they're answering questions across help desk tickets or knowledge base articles. Taking the time to write those things has been a big barrier for us, because you've got to have, normally in a pre-AI type world, you got to have people who obviously understand the scenario, who understand all of what goes into getting an answer. So the ability to train up already smart models then with more specifics to allow it for content generation, both from a marketing side to take complex type discussions and maybe create, easier to understand ways to talk about that in the first place. We're using it in that way, as well as on the, generative side for knowledge base and help desk articles as well. The last thing I'd say is we're also looking to tap into the coding elements of it, not just from our developers. I'm sure that they're using AI tools as well, but there's another use case that involves coding, and that's really for the generation of documents like invoices and quote letters and things inside of PrintIQ. We have the ability to edit those things, and if you have just a little bit of HTML or JavaScript knowledge, most people can do that for themselves. But being able to train up the tool to generate even that for people enables even more people in the platform to say, here's what I want to do, here's what I want something to look like, and it'll generate the code for them to be able to do that. That's something we're also looking to roll out in the future as well.
Fantastic. Marco says, I think the next golden age will come when integration of quantum computing with AI models adapted with this type of calculation. So there we go. I think Marco's onto something there. So gentlemen, let's get back into the print side of it. So we all know AI is going to help us. We all know. I was fortunate to be part of a discussion earlier on today in the Middle East, and it was about AI education, funny enough, and they're actually celebrating 70 years of AI as like a national holiday, if you like, out in the UAE. But one of the things they're really focusing on is AI education. And something I found really, really refreshing was they're looking at generational language on how to educate people to embrace AI. So for example, if the 60 plus will have a plethora of skills and experiences in certain industries, but they may have a slight they may need a different talk track on how they're going to learn those tools, whereas millennials or people coming out of college or uni will be a lot more adverse to it, a lot more open to it. So education seems to be a big side track here for the AI development piece. But coming back to print, we're talking about efficiency. So, I can think of design, I can think of pre-press, I can think of print workflows. Am I missing anything else that's obvious that you guys would want to bring into the print industry? And that's to any one of you.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's interesting because initially it was very much on the front end of things, bringing in things from a web to print platform, working with pre-press automation tools like what InFocus can offer. But we've even, to keep on the InFocus train, we've even got people who are using the logic that you're able to build into a tool like Switch to interact with jobs, to move them through production, to change production statuses along the way, which really pushes the job down to, to the fulfillment side of shipping that job out. And then with
Mm.
the integrations that we have into other platforms for accounting and for reporting as well, allow you to really automate getting that data generated and pushed downstream so that you can action on it, in some of the areas of the business that weren't quite so automated maybe a few years ago along the way. And I think Davey hit on the right point of data.
Mhm.
You always need more data. That's really how these AI models, that's their lifeblood, is feeding them data, including, training them specifically on the data inside your business. And so
Mhm.
with these tools interacting more, it just creates more and more high quality data about how a job performed or how your business is doing in certain aspects, which allow you to extract more information out than you would have been able to otherwise.
Mhm.
Da- Davey, you mentioned earlier on a couple of examples of where photographs are taken and you've used AI technologies to tidy up, improve, crop, or whatever it may be. Do
Mhm.
you have any other examples where AI can help improve
Where
human?
AI can help, and certainly, for example, this is an evolution that we're seeing happening right now, is, for example, let's take a simple task of pre-flighting. A simple task of pre-flighting, this is pass, warning, or fail. Okay, so what we're doing currently in an automated workflow is that, for example, we have our pre-flighting profiles. We are able to do some fix-ups as well in those pre-flighting profiles, but still we can have the issue that it fails pre-flighting. What happens when it fails? It goes back to a human person. It goes back to a human and says to that human, this has failed. What do you want me to do with it? So what we're seeing in the next evolution is that we're going to that every production company will have its own, let's say, GPT. Its own GPT where it can learn, for example, what actions that it needs to undertake for the products that that company produces, depending on which products, the technology that they have, there's the substrates, and so forth and so forth. So that means, for example, that it still will go into the beginning to a kind of checkpoint where a human, for example, needs to communicate to the system what needs to be done. But what will be the difference here is that the system will learn based on that decisions and will, and in a certain way, actually start automating that whole process using AI. This is the direction where we're heading into today, and this technology will become available quite soon. I'm not, of course, talking about InFocus, but this is the technology that we're heading into. Now, going back, for example, what is the correct basis of having this system implemented? Now, in the graphical industry, we have a lot of specific terms, specific, let's say, items, technologies. Like, for example, what a GPT needs to be able to learn is, for example, the understanding of bleed, the understanding of a trim box, the understanding of an overprint, for example. So
Yeah,
we still
yeah.
need the basis of a GPT, for example, that understands what that is. Like, for example, you would be actually go to school and learn all those basics. Same thing for a GPT. So the industry, what is the industry in need for? Is really a GPT that understands, for example, our specific ways of doing something in our level of production and in our technology. And that is
Okay.
certainly needed.
No, that's fantastic. And I think that's something that, again, things like bleed and pre-flight, these are all things that we've taken for granted over the last 10, 15 years with part of our workflow. These are standards that we want, whether you're building a web to print system or whether you're improving your workflow. These are all things that we I think we've taken for granted. There's a few gentlemen in the chat actually been talking about RAG or retrieval
Mhm.
or augmented generation, and they're saying that actually that's the way to go. They seem,
Mhm.
that some. Is there anything you guys would like to just touch on that very quickly before we move on? Because it
Yeah,
seems
I mean,
that
yeah, absolutely. That's good you brought that up. it really builds on what Davey was saying there. It's taking the models that are powerful and trained on a generalization of a lot of data,
Mhm.
and then using those to power a specialized model that's
Exactly.
augmented with a knowledge base or with some kind of a guide, so that you build it into the instructions for that model to prioritize those answers from the authoritative source. So to reference
Mhm.
back to what we're doing, that's really what we're working at right now, right? Which is fine tuning the model so that it references knowledge base articles, answers distilled from desk tickets, those types of things, and it prioritizes those, and then empowers with the model's underlying logic.
Mhm.
Allows you to generate an answer in a way that you can interact with the model, and that really trains it up, like Davey was saying, so that it understands what bleed is and what other parameters of the printing industry are.
So we
Okay.
already have standards in our industry. We already have the Gantt work group that does PDF pre-filing profiles. We have ISO standards. Maybe the next evolution is a kind of standard like that, a kind of rack that actually will support us in our industry.
Okay, Davey, thank you very much. Craig, I'm going to move on to the next section. So the percentage of productivity increase that AI can bring to technology to your business is 40%. Now, this is my personal favorite, this slide, because we're going to talk about probably one of the most burning questions I've heard in my time in the print industry, and I haven't been in the industry very long or working with the industry. Will AI take jobs or create opportunities? Now, I love this question because 7, 8 years ago, when we were really pushing automation and reducing touch points and making workflows more efficient, we used to hear, oh, so and so does that, and then they're going to lose their job. And we always used to say, no, you move them to another part of the business or create another revenue stream. Surely this is the same, gentlemen, is it not? The same scenario?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that always there's a fear of, when there's new technology that seems to be accelerating faster than others in the past, that comes with an amount of fear. I think that some of that is true. I mean, I think there probably are some jobs that are ripe for potentially being automated. I mean, we can't say that won't happen ever. But to circle back to what I said earlier, in our industry specifically, I think we've long been in search of ways to augment our capabilities to do more with the same amount of people, or sometimes less. I mean, I don't know how many times I've worked at shops or been in shops and conversations with people where, somebody that's been with the business a long time is retiring, and replacing them is almost impossible because you don't have
Mhm.
people coming in, with that same amount of knowledge. And so finding quality people, or finding experienced, knowledgeable people, is sometimes hard in our industry. And so now that we have these tools where we're able to train them up further on collective knowledge about your business and about our industry, I think it really just enforces the ability to continue to do more with the same amount of people. And then
Mhm.
possibly, if you have people that naturally leave the business, maybe you're not pressured to be scrambling to find somebody to replace them, because these tools, can help do that. So coming in, are they going to immediately fire people? I don't necessarily know that's going to be the case, but I think that it'll allow us all to just do a little bit more, which really, at the end of the day, how many people have been wearing 17 hats in their
Mhm.
role anyways, right? Along the way.
Great. I'm just going to jump in there. Jeff says the finest candle makers in the world couldn't make electric lights. So strategic thinkers from Michael, strategic thinkers and workers can champion AI as a tool, help to empower, not just take over. So I think we all know where we sit with this. Davey, you've been a strong advocate of embrace it. It's here to help
Mhm.
you. It's your mate. It's your co-pilot.
Mhm.
Do you want to share a little bit more on that kind of feel?
Uh, Exactly what you said. It's a co-pilot. It's a helper. It will not replace your job yet. We don't know where it's gonna where we're gonna have that evolution. Now, coming back, for example, a couple of years ago, we had the same worries about automation. If I implement automation, will I actually lose my job? We had the same. Now, and that was also not the case. Now, first of all, we have to be realistic. What do we see in our industry if we see that the knowledge is going away? It is not only about being able to pay a paycheck to be able to add an additional pre-press operator, for example. It's being able to find that person that has the technical knowledge to do that pre-press work.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Second thing, are we going to hire that prepress operator to manually check if a file supplied by a customer is print ready, yes or no? Or are we going to hire them, for example, to be able to sell artwork generation? What is the most lucrative here? For example, can you sell to your customer 15 euros, 20 euros, for example, because their PDF was not print ready, and you had to actually manipulate the PDF to be able to make it print ready. Are you able to sell that, or is it an easy sell or a hard sell? Depending, for example, if you're a commercial printer, or if you're in wide format, a commercial printer, maybe it's easier to actually sell that to your customer. In wide format, they don't do that. It's seen as a cost. So are you hiring those kind of people to actually constantly make sure that your files are print ready? Or are you going to use tools like automation? Not talking about AI yet, but are you going to use tools like automation, like pre-flighting, for example, to automate that process with or without AI? AI is going to add a level of improvement to that process. But first of all, ask yourself the question, how do I do it today? Is that manual, or is it already automated in a certain way? So that is the first thing. And I think coming back, for example, to people being scared of losing their job, depends on the person. Depends how flexible that person is. If, for example, you have less work in the prepress department because you started automating or you start using AI, maybe that person can do something else. We all know, for example, that CSRs will be in higher and higher demand in a certain pace, being able, for example, to sell product. And we also know, for example, that we're going to do less quantity per job, but we're going to produce more jobs, or we will need to be able to produce more jobs on a daily basis, because the quantity per job is going down. Is going down anyway. People are not ordering 1 million brochures anymore. They're ordering 50.
Yeah.
But we'll order more brochures, for example, in a certain time span. So that is something that we need to realize.
So listen, ladies and gentlemen, as well, I'm going to have to say that this topic is absolutely blowing up, and we're starting to run out of time. So I'm going to ask you all, first of all, would you like a part 2 to this? Would you like us to continue the conversation? Because we could organize another one and we could go into like a follow-up. If you have some questions as well that you'd like answered, please get them into the chat. We'll make sure that we can get these followed up. I'm already seeing straight away, yes, please give us a thumbs up if you want part 2. Lots of part 2s coming through. Happy to organize it. I feel that this subject matter we're touching 1% of this, and we need to embrace this. As I say, the three of us feel very strongly the print industry is the best industry. It's creative and it's technical. That's what we do, and that's what we do well. We're ahead of the other industries, as we keep saying. So yeah, part 2, we can do that. Gentlemen, I'm just going to move on a little bit, because I want people to know where they can find you over the next few weeks and months. So okay, Craig. So looks like Davey, Print IQ are also extremely busy right now. You're going to be at Dscoop, Packprint, and IPMA. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those three and what we can look forward to?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we're continuing just as Davey was saying, it's trade show season, and we've been already at a lot of shows this year, and are excited to continue that. Very excited about Dscoop, another adjacent community where a lot of forward thinking in that space, and so we're very excited to continue to be a part of Dscoop and what that means. We're working on some new integrations in the HP world, so we're excited to talk more about those at that show, as well as some of our team in the Southern Hemisphere will be at the Packprint show in Sydney, and then again excited to also be at IPMA, which we've seen a lot of growth in people in the implant space, governments and universities and those type of entities that are really wanting to take hold of these automations. So we're excited to be part of that as well.
Fantastic. And then Davey, are you hitting the road again, sir?
Well, our team is going to be at FESPA. I think it's next week. Yeah, well, I'm not getting a rest. I'm actually I'm going to be in San Francisco doing a prospecting event together with XMPie and also with Landa as well. So I'm going to be there while our other colleagues will be at FESPA next week in Berlin. We're also going to do Dscoop. We're going to see each other again at Dscoop. I heard, Chris, you're going to be there as well. And one of our partners is also going to do the hackathon at Dscoop. So that could also be very interesting on how to integrate, for example, using HP's APIs. They also do a couple of things in AI as well. So he's joining the hackathon, and Packprint, we're going to be represented by one of our partners, Workflows with a Z. Alan Dixon is going to be there. So
And he's just messaged in the chat. He's just said in the chat, actually, he said, see you at Packprint. Thanks, Alan. We love your work. You're also a pillar of our community, sir. So I would tip our hat to you. Okay, fantastic. So again, there's so much more we could talk about. I wanted to talk about the App Store and the AI involved there, the connectivity with PrintIQ and the App Store, but I think we'll save that for part 2, if you don't mind, gentlemen. I'm just going to move on to the next webinars as well. So this is another fantastic opportunity to hear from both of our 2 experts here today. Craig, 22nd of May, Step into the Future Pre-Press Automation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're excited to unveil some kind of pre-baked, packaged up tools that are available for pre-press automation that are actually empowered by some InFocus elements as well. And we want to talk about that for what people do. The long and short of it is some people are doing all kinds of crazy things and have built custom workflows to do all kinds of automation. Some people just want to automate certain parts of their pre-press side of things, and we've got some exciting tools in that space that we want to unveil on that webinar.
Fantastic. So guys, scan that QR code, get onto that session. And Davey, what I'm really excited about, I did mention the App Store, this whole kind of series of Switch works with. I love it. You launched, I had a couple of workflows going on at Graphics Canada, at ISA, and it was an Significance product, wasn't it? Called
Significance just launched, I think it was last week, S-Launch, or 2 weeks ago, I'm not 100% sure. And S-Launch is a new way, for example, to be able to capture orders from your customers in a very simple and easy way through form submission, and automate the hell out of it. And they're launching the apps in a couple of weeks. And we're also going to demonstrate what you can do with S-Launch in combination with Switch and other third-party products.
Fantastic. So again, scan the QR code. Make sure you get onto both those sessions, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions you would like our panelists to answer, pop your email address into the chat. We've had plenty of votes in there asking for a thumbs up or a second session. So we'll go away and we'll organise that. Thank you to everyone that signed up. We had a really good response today, over 500 sign-ups. Thank you to Davey. Thank you to Craig. Thank you to Carissa behind the scenes as well. And thank you for everyone's support.
Thank you, Chris, for moderating.
Absolute
Yes,
pleasure, gentlemen. Absolute pleasure. Okay, well, it leaves me to say goodbye then, and we'll be in touch. Bye for now.
Everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.